Shalom, this is Yair, Davidiy speaking from the land of Israel. Today we are about to discuss the subject of Judah and Samaria, Judah v'Shomron in Hebrew. This is a region otherwise known as the West Bank of the state of Israel. That is the region that Israel liberated in the 1967 war. Present this area is settled by Arabs and by Jews. The Arabs are in the majority, but there are still a large number of Jews there. Where this is the area to which portions have been allocated to the Arabs. In some regions they have a certain degree of autonomy, and it is the regions where most pressure is being applied to Israel to liberate altogether, to return to the Arabs, or to give the Arabs more control over it. And international pressure is constantly being placed on the state of Israel because of this region. And actually giving any more liberty to Palestinian, to Arab elements in this area than already exists would threaten the whole land of Israel. Because if you look at a map, Israel is a very small area, and it is one ecological continuum. There's not much water. Even now, most water that the Jews in the land of Israel drink or will be drinking in the near future is that obtained from desalination plants. In other words, natural water resources are getting scarcer and scarcer. And most of the reserves, or more than half of the reserves of water, are found in Judah and Samaria. In addition to that, there are mineral resources, there's problems of earth, of soil erosion, and of treatment of sewage, and all kinds of ecological considerations which require the state of Israel to have control over the place. And not only that, Israel needs the space to prevent terrorists and foreign antagonistic elements from attacking Jewish centers of population. And also the Jews need room to expand, to build houses for their children and their children's children. And even now, they lack space. Even plans have been made, serious plans have been made to create islands off the coast of Tel Aviv and the coast of Israel in order to put Jews there, because there's not enough room in the present-day borders. So they cannot or should not give up any of this region. And according to the Bible, they are forbidden to do so. So this is a complicated issue. It includes a lot of elements, a lot of considerations. For the purpose of this talk, we are going to consider it from the point of view of the Bible, and also from the point of view of the involvement of the lost 10 tribes of Israel. You have 12 tribes of Israel, and 10 of the tribes were exiled by the Assyrians and lost consciousness of their ancestry, and we traced them to peoples in the West. And they will return and they will reunite with Judah, and together they will gain control of much of the Middle East, of a large area, and they will heal the area. They will rehabilitate the ecological structure of the region. They will heal the land. And the land will require some healing. This is what has been prophesied, is mentioned or indicated in the book of Ezekiel and elsewhere. And the lost 10 tribes are in the West, but they do not know who they are. They're not conscious of their ancestry. They're not aware on the whole that they descend from Israel. And even when they are aware of it, they don't know, or they are not sure of which tribes they belong to. In the future, this will change. And until it does, the Jews are minding that small portion of the region that they have, both on behalf of themselves, for their own reasons, for their own interests, and also, as if guided by divine providence, they're doing so on behalf of all of Israel. And we'll discuss some of these matters from the point of view of the Bible. The forefathers of the Israelite nation were Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob was renamed Israel. Israel is another name for Jacob. Jacob gave birth to 12 sons. These 12 sons became the heads of the tribes of Israel, the forerunners, the forefathers of the 12 Israelite tribes. They came out of Egypt, they conquered the land, and after a period of judges, of ups and downs, they established a monarchy. The first king was King Saul from the king of Benjamin. After him came King David from the tribe of Judah. After David came King Solomon. After Solomon came King Rehoboam in English transliteration. And in his reign, the 10 of the tribes rebelled against the kingdom of David, against the house of David, and they set up their own kingdom in the north, and they became the 10 tribes of Israel. They were conquered by the Assyrians, taken into exile, and in their places of exile, they lost consciousness, they lost awareness of who they were. They are the 10 tribes of Israel. We find them amongst Western peoples, as we have said, in the future they will return. At present, they do not know who they are, and most people are not aware of who they are either. We have studied the subject. That's what we do. We study the subject, and we believe that we have found them. We are certain we have found them. We have proofs of this. We have proofs of this from the Bible. We have proofs of this from secular sources. We have proofs of this from many, many directions, and we bring all of these proofs together and show how they all interlock with each other and become one integrated whole, one whole body of evidence, which is quite convincing when considered objectively. The problem is getting people to listen to us, getting people to consider what we have said, but we do our best, and we do get through to some. And this is a beginning. At all events, getting back to when the Israelites came out of Egypt, they went down to Egypt, they were in Egypt they had been oppressed, they'd been enslaved. Then Moses came and delivered them, and under Moses they went out of Egypt. They journeyed through the wilderness for 40 years, and they came to Canaan, which was the promised land, which had been promised to their forefathers, and they conquered it. And the first areas to conquer it was those areas east of the Jordan River, and the areas east of the Jordan River were conquered by all the Israelite tribes, and the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh received that portion for their tribal allotment that was given unto them, but they were warned they would need to go together to continue the conquest with the other tribes. They could leave their children and their wives in the areas that they had conquered with the portion of their menfolk, but the rest of them would have to continue with the other tribes and conquer the rest of the land, and only when all of the tribes will have received their portions will they be allowed to come back and take what had already been given to them. And this is what they agreed to. We find this in the Bible. We find this in the book of Numbers and also in the book of Joshua. Joshua chapter 1, he speaks to the Reubenites and to the Gadites and to the half-tribe of Manasseh. Joshua said, "Remember the word which Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, saying, the Lord your God gives you rest and will give you this land. Your wives, your little ones, and your cattle shall remain in the land which Moses gave you beyond the Jordan. But you shall cross before your brothers in battle array, all your valiant warriors, and shall help them, until the Lord gives your brothers rest, as he gives you, and they also shall possess the land which the Lord your God is giving them. Then you shall return to your own land and possess that which Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave you beyond the Jordan towards the sunrise," and that is to say in the east to the Jordan River. So after that, all of the Hebrew tribes crossed the Jordan River. They conquered the south and the centre of the land of Israel, which is the present-day areas of Judah, of Ephraim, of the territories of Manasseh, that is most of Judah and Samaria, all of it. They conquered it, and they divided it. After that, there was still 7 tribes who had not received their portions, and they too received their portions. These last 7 tribes to receive their portions were Simeon, Benjamin, Asher, Naphtali, Zebulun, Issachar, and Dan. And following that, 48 cities scattered throughout all the land were given to the Levites. The Levites had their portion amongst all the tribes. These became the cities of the Levites. Not only the cities, but also areas of land around the cities were given unto them. The Levites were the tribe of priests, and their task was to worship God and to teach the other tribes. So the 12 tribes of Israel apportioned the land of Israel between them. This included Judah and Samaria. As we said, the first king was Saul from the tribe of Benjamin. After Saul came David, and after him Solomon. Then the 10 tribes separated from the other tribes, so divided into 2 kingdoms. See 1 Kings 12, verses 16 to 19. Meanwhile, the kingdom of Judah was in the south. It was centered on Jerusalem, whereas the kingdom of Israel of the 10 tribes was in the north. It is sometimes referred to as Samaria, and its capital was also known as Samaria. The Assyrians attacked the northern kingdom, and in stages they exiled all of its inhabitants. These exiles included Israelites from east of the Jordan, as the Bible tells us. 1 Chronicles 5, verse 26, it says, "So the God of Israel stirred up the spirit of Pul, king of Assyria, even the spirit of Tilgath-Pilneser, king of Assyria, and he carried them away into exile, namely the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, and brought them to Halah, Habor, Hara, and to the river of Gozan to this day." Also an exile of the tribes in the north, as we find in 2 Kings 15, verse 29. The days of Pekah, king of Israel, came Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, and took Eon and Abba, Beth Ma'akah, and Yanoah, and Kadesh, and Hazor, and Gilead, and Galilee, and all the land of Naphtali, and carried them captive to Assyria. Finally, he took away the area around Samaria. 2 Kings 17, verse 6 says, "On the 9th year of Josiah, king of Assyria, captured Samaria, and he carried Israel away into exile to Israel, and set them in Halah, and Habor, and the river of Gozan, and the cities of the Medes." We also find that the Assyrian king Sennacherib exiled a portion of the Jews of Judah, and these too joined the 10 tribes in their places of exile and became part of them. And in addition to all this, to all of the 10 tribes being taken away, we find a minority elements from the 10 tribes who fled from the Assyrians and rejoined themselves to Judah, or somehow had already been living in Judah at the time of the Assyrian invasions, and they too had to be found amongst Judah. In other words, we have Judah was mainly from the tribes of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, because we are told how at an early stage the Levites had left the northern kingdom and come to the south, and we also have minority elements of all the other tribes amongst Judah. Judah was a dominant tribe in the south, and that is why all inhabitants, or descendants of all inhabitants of that kingdom, are known as Jews. Jew means Judah. But there was also people known as the Samaritans. The Samaritans. Who are the Samaritans? This is worth knowing, because sometimes people bring this subject up and it can cause confusion. After the 10 tribes have been exiled from their lands, and the section of the Israelites living in Samaria had also been exiled from their lands, the king of Assyria, he brought in peoples from outside, from areas in Babylon and the region around there, and he settled them in the land of Samaria, around the city of Samaria. This is mentioned in the Bible, and it's also confirmed by Assyrian inscriptions. The Assyrian king mentions doing this, of bringing in people from the region of Babylon and settle them in the region. There came down groups of lions. Whole groups of lions came into the area and started attacking the people, and this was a phenomenon that was known, and we also find records of this happening and also in Mesopotamia and other areas of the region. There were lions in the region, lions in the area, and sometimes they got together and attacked whole villages of people. So they also attacked the newcomers who had settled in the region of Samaria, and they understood this to be because they were not worshipping the God of the land. So 2 priests from the exiles were sent to the Samaritans to teach them about the God of Israel, and they did so, but the Samaritans took what they'd been learned and they combined it with their pagan previous religions, and they made a synthetic creed of their own, and that is what they did. And so the Jews didn't want anything to do with them. At one stage later in history, there was an attempt by the Jews to convert the Samaritans, to bring them closer to Judaism, And this succeeded to a degree, but then they saw that they weren't sincere, that it wasn't really worth the while, it was only going to cause trouble and fiction in the end, so the Jews left them alone and distanced themselves from them. And these people who had received this new faith and created a faith of their own were known as Samaritans. And that is who the Samaritans were. We find this in 2 Kings 17:24. It says, the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon and from Cutha and from Abba and from Hamath and Sepharvaim and settled them in the cities of Samaria in place of the sons of Israel. So they possessed Samaria and lived in the cities. And these are the Samaritans, pagans, originally pagans, and have nothing to do with the Israelite nation apart from claiming to have some type of connection. So that is all there is, and there aren't that many of them left anyway. There are a few hundred of them still alive. At one stage they were numbered in their millions, but they were scattered to other regions. So at all events, after this exile, we have the situation. Judah was in the south, that include the area of Benjamin, north of Jerusalem. Samaria had belonged to the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh and Issachar. The 10 tribes have been mostly exiled, but representative portions of them are also in the area of Judah, as we mentioned. And this is also found in the Bible. For instance, we find King Josiah of Ammon. For instance, we find King Josiah, son of Ammon, who lived about 100 years after the exile of the Israelite tribes. He was king over Judah, and he purified it. The Bible tells us how he ruled over all of the area of Samaria, of the northern tribes. He ruled over it. And for instance, not only does the Bible tell us that, we also find archaeological evidence. We find a stellar kind of stone monument dedicated to him in the area of Brit-Am, which previously had belonged to the tribe of Manasseh, and so definitely in order to put up a monument to himself at that time, he must have had control of it. And the Bible tells us how he went through all the regions of the previous Israelite inhabitants. He went through all those areas, and he destroyed all the idols that he found in the cities in their destruction. In other words, the cities had been destroyed. There was no one living in there, but the idols that they had made before their exile were still there. So he went through these cities and he destroyed them. But we also find a mention of Israelites from the 10 tribes being under his rulership later. It says, at all events, in 1 Chronicles chapter 34, beginning from verse 4 to verse 7, it tells us that they, that is the people of Judah, under King Josiah of Ammon, they tore down the altars of the Baals in his presence, and the incense altars that were high above them, that then he chopped down, and also the Asherim, the groves like the Druids in England and Britain had. The carved images and the molten images he broke in pieces and ground to powder, and scattered on the graves of those who had sacrificed to them. Then he buried the bones of the priests on the altars and purged Judah and Jerusalem, and the cities of Manasseh, Ephraim, Simeon, Ibn as Naphtali's, in their surrounding ruins. In other words, they were ruined cities. In their ruins, he tore down these idols. And verse 7 tells us he also tore down the altars he also tore down the altars and beat the Asherim and the carved images into powder and chopped down all the incense orders throughout the land of Israel. Then he returned to Jerusalem. And we also tell us from this that we see from this that Josiah had control over the regions of the cities of Manasseh, of Ephraim, Simeon, even as far as Naphtali in their surrounding ruins. This tells us that the cities of Samaria were then in ruins and presumably uninhabited, that all of the 10 tribes have been exiled. But Josiah, on behalf of the other tribes, had gained control over them. Josiah of Judah ruled over them. And he also reformed the temple worship and cleansed the temple and purified it. And we find in 2 Chronicles 34, verse 9, and they came to Hilkiah the high priest and delivered the money that was brought unto the house of God, which the Levites, the doorkeepers, had collected from Manasseh and Ephraim, and from all the remnant of Israel, from all Judah and Benjamin, inhabitants of Jerusalem. So we see here that how they were going to renovate the temple, rebuild it, purify it. They needed money to do this. So they collected money, and amongst those who gave money were people from Manasseh and Ephraim and the remnant of Israel. In other words, there were some portions of the 10 tribes, even as minority elements, together with Judah at that stage, which is worth remembering. The Judah, on the one hand, represents his own tribe, mainly his own tribe, that is Judah, Benjamin and Levi. He is Judah, but he also has within him elements from all of the other tribes. And on the other side of the equation, we have the 10 tribes, who are the 10 tribes are separated from Judah, but also together with them, we also find elements from Judah. So in effect, we find 12 tribes here and 12 tribes there, but the difference is in the relative weight of numbers on each side from each tribe, and also in the predicted fulfillment of their national destiny. The 10 tribes had their own destiny to fulfill, and they would do it in exile, as now they would give expression to their tribal predestination, whereas Judah, the tribes who belong to Judah, would also do the same as part of Judah.